The Miami Dolphins went to Spain. They beat the Commanders. Hooray! But the process and how they got there was the same old garbage. Let's talk about it.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphins Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Brain, that was kind of trash.
That was how did you describe it? Same old garbage?
Same old garbage.
Yeah, we've seen that football game. That's been the vast majority of football games for this football team here over the last 25 years. Maybe not so much in the Mike McDaniel era where there's been a lot more, exciting football with more points scored and everything, but this was like vintage same old Dolphins football. This was like Dave Wannstedt, Joe Philbin, Nick Saban, Adam Gase. That was that era of same old Dolphins football. A 13-13 game. Nobody wants to win. Goes into overtime. Missed field goals. Poor coaching decisions. Mistakes. Just bad football. And look, it shouldn't be a shock. I mean, you had two teams that were coming in at 3-7, and we got bad football. Go figure.
But Brain, the Dolphins have won 3 out of 4 games. They're on a 2-game winning streak. They're 4-7. We're on the up, man.
Well, maybe it would matter if you didn't lose 6 of the first 7.
The Dolphins are turning it around. We got people predicting they're going to be, you ready for it? You know where they're going to be? They're going to be in the hunt.
They already made it into the graphic. Somebody took a screenshot. They have already made it into the graphic. Somebody took a screenshot from one of the games. They're right there. They're the worst team. They're the last place team in the hunt at 4-7.
But we are in the hunt.
Here's the thing, and here's the question that I want to ask. And I don't know if this is where you wanted to take the show, but you've led me here, and so this is. Well,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying this. Go ahead.
You got to be in the hunt if you're gonna, bring home. If you're gonna bag the prize deer, you got to be in the hunt.
Okay, fair. Now, here's what I'm saying. As delusional and unrealistic as it is that the Dolphins are going to win out, and even if they win out, as unlikely as it is that they'd win out, even if they win out, they probably don't make the playoffs. Let's say they win out, and let's say they make the playoffs. To what end does this get the Miami Dolphins any closer to being an actual championship contending team?
Well, that puts you in the hunt. You gotta make the big dance if you want to have a chance to win it, Brain. Hey,
well, you're saying
don't shoot the messenger.
You're saying if this Dolphins and look, I realize this is a dumb argument to begin with because They're not going to win out.
There's no such thing as a dumb argument. Only dumb people.
But let's play along with the delusion. And let's say that this team makes the playoffs. Does this team, even if this team finds a way to string what will have been 8 wins in a row together, does this team have any realistic shot of being a championship contender?
Well, if I were going to parse the words, one might say that if the team is in the playoffs, they are, by definition, contending for a championship.
Let me ask you this question. When the Dolphins went 11-5 with Chad Pennington and the Wildcat, and then got their doors blown in the first game of the playoffs against Baltimore, when the Dolphins a few years ago backed their way into the playoffs at 11-6 after starting like 8-3 or whatever it was, and got beat by the Chiefs in frigid temperatures. When the Dolphins then backed their way into the playoffs the following year and lost to Buffalo in the first round of the playoffs, was there a sense with any of those teams, not at any point in the season, but by the time they got into the playoffs, was there a sense that that team was a championship contending team?
I mean, if they were in the playoffs, they were contending, is the argument that some people would make.
Okay, let me ask you a question. This is stupid already. Like you're playing this stupid side of the argument. I'm like you're talking about
the devil's advocate.
So you're telling me that in any given year there are 14 championship contending teams in the National Football League?
I'm just telling you. I am simply telling you what the people would tell you. Right?
I don't care what the people tell me. I'm asking you, as an intelligent Dolphins fan, as somebody who I respect. I'm not asking, Joe Blow Dolphin fan who watches his team, on Sunday and then doesn't really, but doesn't know the ins and outs of, how the team is built and salary cap decisions and draft picks and all this stuff. And I'm asking an intelligent Dolphin fan who does a Dolphins podcast.
I appreciate your compliment.
Has this team been a championship contending team at any point over the last quarter of a century?
No.
Okay.
Of course not.
So I ask again, let's take the delusional mind track to the place where the Miami Dolphins are not only winning out the rest of the season, but then making the playoffs. Are they a championship contending team?
No.
And does anything that they do in that stretch, maybe not anything that they do, because there is inherently value in experience and getting better and coming together as a football team. But is there anything that is tangibly going to make the Miami Dolphins better by being by winning 10 games and sneaking into the playoffs, although clearly not being a championship contending team?
Well, let me give you the answer that some people will make. Some people will make the argument that the Miami Dolphins starting 2-7 and then winning 8 consecutive games to finish 10-7 says a lot about Mike McDaniel and his ability to retain the trust of this team and the locker room. It almost certainly means that the owner will think, well, this quarterback and this head coach are capable of winning. They just got off to a bad start and they got some bad breaks, because that's what happens. If you finish 10-7, you can go back and go, Devon Achane made one mistake. He stepped out of bounds. A portion of his foot stepped out of bounds in that game against the Patriots, so you didn't win that game. You can say, you were half an inch. A player who is no longer on your team was half an inch away from finishing a sack on Justin Herbert that allows you to beat the Chargers. And then suddenly you're not 10-7, you're 12-5. I'm not making this argument. This is what somebody will tell you, right? That you were a small, two bad decisions away, from one bad decision away from beating the Bills in Buffalo. Whatever the case may be is. And people will say that there is value in seeing that team go 2-7 and finishing strong at 10-7. There is value. That is good. That is what people will say.
Yeah, sure. There is value that is good.
But is there value in the, when you look at it from the macro sense, and that's what we always try to do on this show. That's why it's called the Same Old Dolphin Show. Same Old Dolphin Show doesn't mean that they're the same team today that they were 6 weeks ago, although they are. Same Old Dolphins means we've been watching this franchise for years and years and years, literal decades, and it's the same shit, different day. Sorry to swear. Okay. I get where you're getting at. Do you want to sum up your argument here? This is the introduction to the show, by the way. I haven't even told everybody to share, like, and subscribe. Everybody share, like, and subscribe and follow it. Take a minute right now. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the thumbs up button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go give a review. Leave us a 5-star rating. Leave us a comment in the chat. Let us know. Do you think they're going to finish 10-7? Let us know. Subscribe to the DolphinsTalk YouTube channel. If you're watching on the I'm a Miami Dolphin fan Facebook page run by the outstanding and handsome and brave and wonderful and intelligent Carlos Hernandez, give us a like, share the video, send it to your friends. If you don't like the show, send it to your enemies. Whatever the case may be, do all the things. Follow us on Blue Sky at Amplified to Rock, at Aaron the Brain, at Same Old Dolphins. Follow us on Instagram, where we're broadcasting live tonight, by the way, on the Same Old Dolphins Instagram. Follow us at Same Old Dolphins. You can do all of those things. Andrew is in the chat on Facebook, says, no, we're not going to finish 10-7. Yeah, I tend to.
We're not.
But go ahead. Sum up your argument. You're saying to what end? Go ahead.
My point is, the people, I know Mike put out an article on DolphinsTalk.com, and you should check it out. Mike does a great job, and, by all means, read the article. I think he makes fair points about there's no such thing as a bad fan. You fan how you want to fan. Whether you're a fan that always roots for your team to win, or a fan that, sees the macro and is tired of seeing and would rather see your team lose if that means the benefit of the thing in the long run, it doesn't make you any less of a fan from Mike's perspective. I am so fed up with seeing the same old shit that I think we need to, as a fan base, be loud and understand what we're rooting for. Because rooting for this team, and I agree with the assessment that if this team that started 2-7 finishes hot, even if they don't finish 10-7, if they finish 8-9, if they finish even at 7-10, it's like, well, you kind of did something at that point to turn your season around. What does it mean? Does it mean something for Mike McDaniel? Sure. You know what it means? It means Mike McDaniel did not lose the locker room. That's not the problem. The problem isn't that the players aren't playing hard for Mike McDaniel. It's that the players are constantly making mistakes because there's not this attention to detail. The coach is making bad decisions that are ultimately costing the team to lose games. The team as a whole is making decisions personnel-wise that are not putting themselves in position to be a championship caliber team. And the coach is making decisions in the way that he's coaching the team, in the strategy that he's employing in the offseason, in the regular season, in the week to week, in the daily operation, and on game day, that are costing this team games. And he has been doing it all 4 years that he's been here, or fifth year, fourth year, whatever. As long as Mike McDaniel has been here, we have seen the same operational mistakes.
Yes.
And so what you're rooting for, when you're rooting for the Miami Dolphins to win meaningless football games that put them nowhere closer to being a championship contending team, but actually hinder them from being it because it actually hurts their draft capital and it feeds into the delusion that they are somehow closer than they actually are, because spoiler alert, this team ain't close. They're not, and they're not going to be close next year. The more you feed into that delusion, the further this team gets from actually making a step to being an actual championship contending team. So while I totally get the argument that you root for your team no matter what, I get up on Sunday, I root for the Dolphins because I'm a Dolphins fan, and if the Dolphins win, I'm in a good mood. F that. F that. Because when you are rooting for that, you are simultaneously rooting for the same thing that we were chastising Stephen Ross for since the end of last season, which is the status quo. You are rooting for it when you root for this team to win. So F the status quo, lose football games. I'm not talking about the players. I'm just talking about that's what would be good for this football team. And if they win games because the players play hard, all you fine. You want to be fine with it? You want to accept it? That's totally fine. But don't lose sight of things need to change. Regardless of results, this team is a failure. The build of this team is a failure. The coaching of this team is a failure. The structure of the football side of this organization is a failure. No matter what happens the rest of this season, this team is a failure. So even if they, by some miracle, because Jaden Daniels gets hurt, and then they play the Saints, and then Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and who knows what else? Maybe Baker Mayfield will get hurt. Maybe Drake May will get hurt, and they luck their way into victory after victory, and they end up somehow going 10-7 by some miracle. It still gets them nowhere closer to being a championship football team. It actually gets them further away.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, you make a very good point there, a very strong case. And it's interesting because there's some pushback in the comments that says somebody's even saying that you can't argue this team has been a failure. I'm sorry. Mike McDaniel was hired 4 years ago, and remind me how many times has Mike McDaniel led the Dolphins to an AFC East title? How many times has Mike McDaniel led the Miami Dolphins to a playoff victory? How many times has Mike McDaniel shown that he is capable of getting his team ready to play a big game on a big national stage against a big opponent? The point that Aaron is making here, and you can agree, listen, I understand that fundamentally getting up and rooting for your team to lose is a difficult thing for somebody to stomach, because you watch sports because you want to have the enjoyment of sports, and you like the idea of watching your team win a game because of the high you get in the moment when they win, regardless of what that means big picture. I get it. I understand. You don't have to make that argument to me. I get it. I understand it. And I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for thinking that way. But what I'm going to say about Mike McDaniel here, and we saw this in this game on Sunday, and this is kind of why we're talking about this, because the Brain and I were talking about it before, going over the ins and outs of the game specifically to talk about this is why the Dolphins won the game, it's kind of pointless, because there was nothing that we learned about this team in the game on Sunday morning that we didn't already know. We already knew that Jalen Waddle sometimes is going to drop a big pass in a big spot. We knew that. We knew that Devon Achane is by miles the best player on this team. We knew that. We knew that Mike McDaniel has a hard time getting his team motivated for whatever reason. He has a hard time getting his team prepared for a big game on a national stage or an international stage, as it was in this case. We already know that there are times that Mike McDaniel has a problem with his operation in getting plays called and getting players to the line and getting the ball snapped, particularly in a short yardage situation. When the Dolphins had that delay of game on the 4th and 1 on the opening drive, you could pick just about any Miami Dolphin game for the last 4 years and find this Miami Dolphin team having that same poor operation. And we were saying this all through the 2022 season and all through the first part of the 2023 season. Anybody who was looking at the Miami Dolphins through an objective lens and not being distracted by the fireworks of the offense that it was putting up against some of these lousy teams that it was playing against could see that there are problems with the operation. There are problems with this coach being able to adjust. And that is going to cost this team when it comes to crunch time at the end of the season, when the rubber meets the road, this team always falls short because the preparation isn't there, because the attention to detail isn't there, and because the operation is flawed. We have seen it for 4 years, right? I want to say, and as I'm seeing the super chats come in, please keep sending them in. We appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel with your super chats. We will get to those comments here before the end of the show. So if you want to have a comment right on the air, drop it in the super chat. We appreciate you. Let me ask you, let's just push football to the side for a second. But let's say you're a supervisor at any job anywhere in the world. And there is, a manager that is in charge of a department somewhere. And every year you're bringing that manager in for a performance review. And every year it's the same exact mistakes over and over and over again that you keep coming back to in the performance review. And you're like, this is a flaw. This is a flaw. This is a flaw. You got to clean this up. You got to fix it. You got to fix it. You got to clean it up. How many times are you going to bring that manager in to your office as the supervisor and give him that same performance review with the same notes without any correction before you go, you know what? This person is clearly not able to fix these errors. So we're going to move on to somebody else. Because that is exactly the problem here. Mike McDaniel has shown over and over and over again that there are things that he does well. Like I'm not brushing over that, right? It is true that there are things that Mike McDaniel does very, very well. He is very good at scheming up plays, and he's very good at designing an offense. I'm not doubting that. You can have questions about the effectiveness of the offense and the effectiveness of certain players all you want, but there are things that he does very well. But there are things that he has struggled with for 4 years now that have cost this team consistently, and they haven't shown any signs of improvement. And when that happens, the only conclusion that you can make after 4 years is that these things are never going to get better. And Stephen Ross, as the brain pointed out earlier, has repeatedly said, please don't, I can't remember the exact quote from his statement at the end of last year, but please don't believe that my desire to not make changes is an acceptance of the status quo. I'm paraphrasing here, but you're getting the status quo. That's what you're getting. And quite frankly, the more the Dolphins win, like at this point, this team is 4-7. The more they win, the more likely they are to meet the status quo again, because they've already shown you they're not going to exceed it. They're not going to be better because they've already lost 7 games. Like, They're literally, the ceiling for this team this season is 10-7, which is the epitome of same old Dolphins. That's the ceiling for this team, is sneaking into a wild card spot. So while yes, you can make the argument, I'm not going to begrudge anybody from saying that they want to see their team win. Obviously, everybody wants to see their team win. Obviously, everybody wants to see their team succeed. But the fact of the matter is, this head coach isn't the answer, and it's never been more clear. I think it's been clear for a long time, but Sunday's game was another screaming example of all of his ineptitudes as a head coach. You saw them. They managed to win the game. Yes, they managed to win the game, but that's like, you had two teams having a poop off, and the winner was the team with less poop in their diaper at the end of the day. And that was the Dolphins on Sunday. The Dolphins on Sunday morning were the team with slightly less poop in their diaper, so they got the trophy. Like, I mean, maybe not the most eloquent example that I could have come up with, or analogy. But that's what?
It's fair. Whether it's eloquent or not, it's fair.
Right. So, again, I'm not going to tell anybody not to cheer for wins, but I want to make it clear that what would be an absolute disaster is for this team to, like, finishing 10-7 for all of that is, as Aaron was saying, is what is it worth? All that's going to do is get you snuck into the playoffs. It's going to destroy your draft stock, and it is almost certainly going to result in the owner of this team mistakenly run it back next year with this same head coach and this same quarterback. And we've already seen, what is that going to amount to? Maybe a wild card berth. That's it. Mind you, and I think what's important to note here is that you've already been lapped by the New England Patriots, who started their rebuild after you. And they've lapped you. So,
we have reached, do you remember? Let's go back to 2018. Adam Gase is the coach, and the Dolphins finish whatever they finished, probably 8-8, 7-9, whatever it was. And Stephen Ross made the decision to fire Adam Gase and fire Mike Tannenbaum, and the terrible decision to then promote Chris Greer to GM. But they made it a point to tear everything up from the studs, because for the better part of a decade, the Dolphins found themselves in a situation where they were consistently a 500 football team. Some years they'd finish a little above 500. Some years they'd finish a little below 500, but they were always a 500 football team. And they always had this feeling that they were a little bit, but they were close. And so consistently they would make moves and decisions in personnel to try to get them over the hump. But in essence, all they were doing is they were trying to sneak into the playoffs, because they were trying to win a playoff game. They were trying to make that next step, but they were nowhere near being a championship contending team. You realize that's the whole reason they tore this thing down, was to get out of that and to build a consistent contender. We are 7 years removed from that, and we find ourselves in that exact situation where our salary cap situation sucks and we are a mediocre football team. And now we are faced with the choice as an organization of, do we try to salvage what we have here, and then maybe we can still kind of make this thing work, because if things break just right, we might be a playoff team. And then once you're in the playoffs, you never know. Once you're in the play, we're in the hunt. Or do we look at this and say, we failed, let's start over, because we understand where we made the mistakes, so let's start over. They really screwed this up a couple of weeks ago. because they had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to make significant moves, trading away pieces, selling off parts that would have put them in a better position to actually do that. But now all they have done is fed into the delusion. I've been telling you since week 3 that the worst thing that could happen to this team is the continued feeding into the delusion that this season is somehow salvageable.
Delusional confidence.
I thought by the time we were 1-7 that we moved way past that. Like, there was no way that anybody really thought that this season can be salvaged. And here we are. Or we were 1-6, and then we were 2-7. I didn't think it was possible. But here we are at 4-7. If you would have told, I don't care if you're the most positive Dolphin fan in the world. If somebody would have told you at the beginning of the season, before any games were played, that this team was going to be 4-7 going into the bye, you'd have said, they got to fire everybody. But now they're 4-7, and now we're saying, but wait a minute, we're in the hunt.
That is a great point. That right there is an excellent point, because that's right. If you ask somebody at the beginning of the season and you told them that, hey, the Dolphins beat the Commanders in week 11 to improve to 4-7, people would have been like, what happened? That's a disaster. Well, that's where we are. And listen, you look at the schedule, and we'll probably do a little bit of a deeper dive on this maybe next week, or on Thursday rather, when we come back for our show on Thursday, since we don't have a preview. But on Thursday, we'll look at the Dolphins schedule. They've got the Saints at home. Saints are awful with Tyler Shuck at quarterback. That, I don't want to say anything with this Dolphins team is a gimme, but that's a winnable game. On the road against the Jets. Okay, cold weather, December 7th. But, up against Tyrod Taylor and the Jets. Then December 15th, they got the Monday night game against the Steelers, which we've been saying that is going to be a really tough game. But now Aaron Rodgers has a broken wrist. They might be going up against Mason Rudolph, though I know Aaron Rodgers, the fact that he's got a broken wrist, a broken bone in his non-throwing wrist, he'll be out there. But still. And then you've got the Bengals at home, and the Bengals defense is just horrendous. So I'm not saying it's an earmark for a win, but these are all like, you could easily see a path to the Dolphins winning their next 4 games. And then they've got week 17 at home against the Buccaneers, which is going to be a very tough game against the Buccaneers team that is now in a real scrap for the NFC South. But then you can end up in week 18 against the Patriots team that potentially at that point doesn't have anything to play for. And maybe resting starters. So, there is a real path. And I'm not saying that I believe that they're going to succeed on that path, because my entire argument about this team is that they're not good enough to do that. And in some way, shape, or form, you have to be a pretty good team to win 8 games in a row in the NFL. It doesn't matter. You have to be at least okay. But again, that gets them to finish 10-7. And you look at the end of the season, and the fact that they won 8 games in a row doesn't matter. Because it's what is the whole?
Right.
The whole is 10-7. The whole is mediocre. The whole is status quo. You're in exactly the same spot that you've been in the last 4 years.
Yes. And then the thing is that you can't carry these wins into next year.
That's right.
Next year they'll start and they'll be 0-0. And then when they look at the cap situation and they go, oh, we can't keep Bradley Chubb. We probably should have traded him. Well, I guess we'll cut him. Oh, now Minkah Fitzpatrick wants a new contract? Do we want to give 30-year-old Minkah Fitzpatrick a big old contract extension? Oh, now we got to give Devon Achane a contract extension because because he's not going to play on his 4th year because he's coming off of a career year. And then, if God forbid we cut Tua, then we got all this dead cap space. At that point, so now we're trimming our best players off of the roster. We can't go out and sign anybody because we don't have the cap space. Is this team going to be better next year? Or is it going to be worse? Or is it more than likely going to be the same thing?
I think it'll be exactly the same thing. And we'll talk about next year and beyond later this week. But yeah, I like the point of all of this is to say, as we said at the beginning, is that cheer for what you want to cheer for. But the best case scenario for the Miami Dolphins franchise, for the whole of the Miami Dolphins franchise, the best possible solution based on all of the evidence that we have seen so far is that you got to get rid of the head coach and you have to move on from this quarterback. And I know you're going to take a hit next year, and that's okay. It is okay. I am of the opinion that if the Dolphins eat that cap hit and just deal with it and end up having to take a year next year where you only win 1 or 2 games because you've had to reset your roster because you couldn't afford it, fine. That's what you need to do. All of what we're looking at right now, and the reason that you're looking at that as an option, as something that you've got to look at as an option, is because the previous general manager, who thank God finally was let go, when that decision was made at the tail end of that 2022 season to go all in and make that trade for Bradley Chubb, and then that offseason to go further in and make the trade that they made for Tyreek Hill, they completely leveraged the future in an effort to win in that moment. And it blew up in their face. It blew up in their face because they've got an injury-prone quarterback that they need to move off of. And again, I know I can already hear some people saying in their comments that, Tua is, not that bad. And it's like, no, Tua is a shell of the player that he was. I was a big fan of the decision. I mean, go out. You could see the video of me having my huge reaction on the night they drafted Tua, saying they didn't screw it up. I will own that. I was very into the idea of Tua as the franchise quarterback for this team. And it took me about 1.5 years to go, this ain't it. This ain't it. Because he can't stay healthy. And now, because of the injuries that he suffered, he can't even move. He can't even move. The team is basically playing with a hand behind their back with Tua at quarterback because he is not capable of doing some of the basic things that a regular quarterback can do. He can't get away from pursuit. He has an inability to do that. Sometimes his decision-making is strange. Mike McDaniel built an offense that was designed for Tua to succeed in. And even now, Tua can't succeed in that offense. So the best thing going forward is for this team to move on from both of those guys. And the more this team wins going forward, knowing who the owner is, you have to, that is part of the conversation. We don't exist in a vacuum here. You have to exist in the reality of the situation, which is knowing who this owner is, that if he sees this head coach put together an 8-game win streak at the end of the season, that he's going to say, that's pretty good. We're going to keep him around. And then they're going to run it back in 2026. And listen, at this point, it's pretty impressive that we're 11 weeks into the season and Tua hasn't been hurt yet. That's pretty impressive for Tua's standards. But, that doesn't mean that we've made it all the way to the end of the season yet. There's still a long way to go. And so, cheer for what you want to cheer for. But this game for me on Sunday, the biggest thing that it reinforced to me was that this is just not, this team isn't good enough. Yeah, they won a game. They won a game again. I had somebody pounding the table for me previously. And it looks like my camera may have frozen again here. We had somebody pounding the table telling me over and over and over again that yes, the Miami Dolphins are a team on the right track because they beat a team on Sunday who many going into the season thought was a potential Super Bowl contender. And you don't get to base wins over what a team was believed to be at the beginning of the season. They didn't even have their starting quarterback. What are you talking about?
Or their best defensive player, or their best wide receiver, or their third best wide receiver.
So listen, to me, we've hit a wall here, and let's just get into the pulse check here. So this is, first of all, actually, before we do the pulse check, caneswear.com. Head to caneswear.com. It's the place to get, if you're going to get gear for any of the college or pro sports teams in South Florida, the place to do it is caneswear.com. They've got the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins, Miami Hurricanes, Florida Gators, Florida Panthers, Miami Heat, Miami Marlins, Inter Miami, whatever the team is, caneswear.com is the spot to get all of that stuff. But yeah, let's get into our pulse check. This is where we ask you for one word to describe how you are feeling right now about the Miami Dolphins. So I want to know, put your pulse check in the comments right now. Let us know, what is one word to describe how you feel about the Miami Dolphins right now? Brain, do you have your word?
Oh yeah, mine was easy. You ready for it?
Yeah, tell me.
It's the same word I had last week. I'm annoyed. Last week I was very annoyed at the Buffalo Bills for letting the Dolphins off the hook and playing a bad football game. This week, I'm very annoyed at Matt Gay. If you make 1 out of 2 field goals, the Miami Dolphins lose this football game. I'm very annoyed at the Washington Commanders as a whole, because in spite of the fact that you guys were undermanned, you guys had every opportunity to win that football game. And the Dolphins didn't beat you. You handed them the game. Like, you gave them, like, let's not even forget. Like, forget about the missed field goals. Forget about the muff punt at the end of regulation. Let's forget about the fact that on the first play of overtime, you throw an interception. How about the fact that on the drive that ultimately tied the game at 13, which ended up being the tying score that led this game into overtime, the first play of that series, Tua throws a deep ball into double coverage that should be intercepted. Just goes right through the defensive back's hands. The Washington Commanders should have won this football game. So I'm annoyed at the Washington Commanders. I'm annoyed at, look, a lot of people will say there is no wrong way to fan. And I'm not necessarily telling you that you're doing it the wrong way. I'm just telling you that understand what you are rooting for. And fans that are rooting, like, it'd be a different story if the Dolphins went out and won this game 30-0. If the Dolphins won that game 30-0 and fans were like, hey, this team looks like they've turned a corner and they're playing well. They just beat the Bills 30-13. They beat the Falcons 30-10 a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, they lost to Baltimore, but they've won 3 out of 4 and they're really playing good football. If this team was playing really good football, I'd still be a little annoyed, but I wouldn't necessarily argue with the fans, because I'd say, look, you're right. They played well and they deserve a lot of credit. They deserve to lose this game. And rooting for this team to win games like that, when they're showing you who they are as a football team, which is a bad football team, understand what you're rooting for. You're rooting for this to continue when you applaud them for playing the way that they played on Sunday. I'm annoyed. I'm going to stay annoyed as long as this team keeps playing that football game and winning games.
Yeah, it is kind of annoying. Let's hear what some of the people had to say. We did get some responses from the Dolphins Talk Extra Discord, which, by the way, if you're not yet a member of Dolphins Talk Extra, head on over to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk and you can join for as little as $3 a month, because that's where we've got lots of fun stuff over there. We've got prediction game, pick'em contest, Survivor Pool. We're actually going to start a new round of Survivor Pool. This is a big announcement here. Because I won, by the way, because I am incredible at Survivor Pool. I was our Survivor Pool champion, but because I won, the prize that we had on offer, I'm putting it back on offer. We're going to have another Survivor Pool contest. So it is a signed Jarvis Landry Miami Dolphins mini helmet. We're giving it away to a member of Dolphins Talk Extra. We're going to do a new round of Survivor Pool so everybody can sign up. Everybody can enter anew. All you have to do is win the Survivor Pool contest and be a member of Dolphins Talk Extra, and you get that Jarvis Landry signed mini helmet. You also get access to our Discord server. You also get bonus podcasts. We do an extra bonus episode of the Same Old Dolphins Show for subscribers every Thursday. And on top of all of that, you also get our live watch-alongs, which we are doing on December 7th. We're doing Brunch with Dolphins Talk. So head on over, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk, and join the fun for as little as $3 a month. Here are some of the comments, the pulse checks from the Dolphins Talk Extra Discord channel. Wida is hopeless. Misharon says meh. Rob Ashton says reassured, and then clarifies by saying the Bills game was an exception. This team aren't being deliberately poor. They are totally beyond repair. Rob Ashton, who was at the game in Spain. Fish Pilot is indifferent. Jamie says ecstatic. Okay. Mark Nelson says, does SSDD count as one word? We'll allow it. Timbo is mad. Al Craig 23 is annoyed. Anjuna Abel is intermediate. Patrick Mullen in all one word, I don't care anymore. The Jet 305 with a great one, melancholy. And Mr. McDolphin, SOD, meaning same old Dolphins. Yeah. Let's see. We got some. Let's see if we've gotten any here in the chat. A sarcastic woohoo from Jordan Murray. Mike Smith is fatigued. Rainier Cavedo is indifferent. Rainier also sent us a super chat that says Dolphins 10-7. Pats lose versus the Dolphins, and the Dolphins. So he's saying the Dolphins will finish 10-7 and beat the Patriots in the playoffs 21-17. That's wild. And then we've got our good friend Carlos Milanes, who says McD and Tua are coming back next year. Ross considers it too financially prohibitive to change at this time. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. Here's some other pulse checks here. Golsky says infuriating. David DeGraffenreid also says annoyed. Yeah, Carlos is bad. Renee is disappointed. Let's go over to the Twitter machine. MTL Dolphin said numb. Austin James III says dissatisfied. Kevin Dern, the host of Dolphins Talk Weekly, says stagnation. Yep. I'm right there with Kevin Dern, honestly, because my word, brain, purgatory. It's where we are. It's purgatory. We're just in that state of we're just in the middle. It's the same thing over and over again. Nothing changes. It's just purgatory. And that's where I am with this team right now. I just don't know any other way to say it. So
someone call that hell.
Yeah, some might call that hell. You're right. But it's a bad thing. So that's our pulse check. Brain, anything else? Is there anything else you want to say coming out of this game before we do some programming notes about what's coming forward?
I think not to be entirely negative. Devon Achane looks really good.
He does. He looks really good. He looks so good that you're going to have to make a decision about.
You got to pay him. You got to pay him. Unless you're going to trade him, you're either going to trade him or you're going to pay him. That's the decision. But I don't think you're going to trade him, because if you were going to trade him, I think you'd have traded him. But I don't think that's going to be in the cards, because I don't think with the season that he's having, I think the asking price is going to be too tall for teams to. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they go out there and they get into the offseason and they say, hey, you want to give Devon Achane a contract? You can give him a contract and give us like a second round pick plus something else. Because that's probably what they're going to ask for. They're probably not even going to accept a second round pick. It's probably going to be a 2 and plus something. And I don't know that there's going to be a team that's going to go out there and that's going to pay a 2 plus give him that contract as a running back, as an undersized running back. So I think you just got to pay him, because at this point you're holding on to him because you're saying like he's the best player on our football team. And so we don't want to trade him because we don't want to trade the best player on our football team. Okay, well then you got to pay him. And I think the floor of his deal is the James Cook deal.
Yeah.
So you're going to pay Devon Achane a bunch of money. I think, there are players that I think are making improvements. Kenneth Grant is making improvements.
Jonas coming along.
Jonas Avayanea, I think, is making improvements.
Coming along.
Jordan Brooks is playing at a Pro Bowl level, I think.
Even Tyrell Dodson is starting to finally get
Tyrell Dodson's playing all right. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick's doing a good job on the back end. Dante Trader, as a young player, I think is doing a nice job. There are some pieces here that, if you want to be positive and say, hey, these are pieces that are going to be here because they're either young pieces. I don't know about Minkah Fitzpatrick, but like the young pieces that were drafted this year, or that have, in a case of an Achane that's probably going to get a contract extension. These are guys that are probably going to be here. So if you have designs on maybe this team can compete again within 2 or 3 seasons, these are some guys that you feel good about. And
you do have some building blocks. And I think that is a positive, right?
Yeah. Patrick Paul, obviously playing well. I'll go ahead and look, not that this is any sort of long-term solution. Don't get me wrong when I'm about to say this, but Larry Borum played pretty damn well in this football game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the ability of the Dolphins to run on the right side of the offensive line behind Cole Strange and Larry Borum. It's worth noting, is all I'm saying.
But now you're getting Austin Jackson back.
And you're getting Austin Jackson back. So, and that's worth, at least evaluating, going
Absolutely.
forward. So it's not like the team is completely bereft of talent. And there are still evaluations to be made. And I still want these players to play well. I just think it behooves the Dolphins to find ways to lose. So it's like, I would love to come out of this. I would love to come out of every game and say, Patrick Paul played really well. Devon Achane played really well. Jalen Waddle played really well. Kenneth Grant, Jonas Avayanea played really well. But we lost this game because our corners sucked and Tua threw a few bad interceptions.
Right.
Because those players are not going to be a piece of when this team is ultimately, hopefully, when this team is ultimately going to be good, if they're going to be good in 2 or 3 years. Those players are not going to be part of it. So I want them to find ways to lose, but I still want the players that are going to be here long term to play well, because that behooves the Dolphins.
Right. I was going to say, how quickly this team is able to turn this thing around and get into their next competitive window is entirely dependent on those young guys hitting, because, ironically, it is really starting to look like maybe this 2024 draft class is pretty good, for Chris Grier at this point. Like, I mean, at least it has the potential to end up being pretty good.
I don't know if it's way too early to tell. And number 2,
sure,
your 2 best draft picks have not been good.
Well, but they're starting to turn it around.
They're starting to turn it around. But at the end of the day, Kenneth Grant is one of the worst rated defensive tackles in the league. And Jonas Avayanea is one of the worst rated guards in the league. So I'm not going to say you had a draft where you had a bunch of draft picks and then you traded a bunch of picks and you basically made it a 2-man draft. And the 2-man draft that you have are 2 guys that right now are performing about as bad as any players that were drafted in the top 2 rounds of the draft.
Yeah.
So to say that right now this is looking like a good Chris Grier draft, I mean, that would say a
it's
lot
getting
about
better.
Chris Greer's drafts as a whole.
Well, but I'll say this. So like we said, and we'll close with this because we got to get out of here, is that there are pieces of this team that you are looking at and you are excited about it. It's kind of sad that the Dolphins have now lost Juju Brents for the season because I think they really have something potentially there that could really work out for them. There are pieces here. There are absolutely pieces on this team that you can identify and continue to identify over the course of this season and let them get that experience and say, these are guys that we think can be part of this next core, whatever it is. But it is also abundantly clear that you don't have your franchise quarterback. You might be stuck with Tua again next year. And to me, it's clear that you don't have the head coach. Hopefully Champ Kelly is sitting here and he's watching and he's evaluating and he's figuring out, okay, these are the players that we can have in place, and he can help the scouting team to understand what is this next version of the team that we want to have in place, or at least can set the table in a way that the GM who's going to come in this winter / spring will be able to get things going in the right direction and start off on the right foot for the Miami Dolphins going forward. But I think it's abundantly clear to me, based on the body of evidence, that if this team runs it back next year, that it's a disaster for the Miami Dolphins going forward. So that's going to wrap us up for this episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show. Once again, make sure you're following us on Blue Sky at Amplified to Rock, at Aaron the Brain, at Same Old Dolphins. Follow us on Instagram at Same Old Dolphins. Visit DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. It's your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. Subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Smash the like button. Go ahead, do it real quick. Smash that thumbs up button. We appreciate it very much. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you're notified every time we go live. Download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere you get your podcast. And stay tuned. We will be back on Thursday with another show. Just because it's a bye week next week and there's no game to preview doesn't mean we're not going to be here. We're going to be here on Thursday. We're also going to have another bonus segment. We'll be back on with a show on Monday, looking ahead to the Saints game. And then on Thanksgiving, we will not have a live show, but we do have something special that we are going to be dropping into your feed. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, that's going to wrap us up for this episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show. So thanks as always for listening. Thanks for watching. We appreciate each and every one of you. Even if you don't agree with how we look at things, we appreciate you tuning in, watching, listening, and letting us know how you feel. Let us know in our comments. Are we completely outrageous? Are we just dumb beyond belief? Are we crazy? Tell us why. Let us know in the comments. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, go Dolphins!
Win or lose, boycott this team.